Good evening and welcome to tonight's Tuesday, September 3rd City Council meeting. Kelly, will you please take the roll?
Mayor McEachran.
Here.
Assistant Mayor Kelly.
Here.
Councilor Tabor.
Here.
Councilor Cook.
Here.
Councilor Denton.
Here.
Councilor Blaylock.
Here.
Councilor Bagley.
Here.
Councilor Moreau.
Here.
Councilor Lombardi.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we are going to start with a proclamation. Do I see it? Oh, I do.
Yep.
All right. So this is National Service Dog. Brendan Madden, who is also here with us tonight, suggested or reached out asking if we would hold this proclamation, and we have one of the Portsmouth, I think the most famous service dog in Portsmouth, on there to receive this. So I'm going to read the proclamation, and then we're going to ask both El Shaheen and Brendan to receive this. Whereas the City of Portsmouth recognizes the profound impact that service dogs have on the lives of individuals with disabilities thanks to their unique ability to enhance the independence, mobility, and overall quality of life for those they serve. And whereas more than 12% of the entire U.S. population and more than 10% of our Portsmouth residents cope with some type of disability on a daily basis, and whereas carefully trained and certified service dogs play a crucial role in assisting individuals with mobility impairments, visual and hearing impairments, autism, epilepsy, diabetes, and often unseen or unnoticed psychiatric challenges such as post-traumatic stress disorder by providing vital support, companionship, and a sense of security. And whereas there are more than 500,000 service dogs in America working on behalf of their companions and their communities, and whereas National Service Dog Month is designed to raise awareness about the incredible contributions of service dogs, to honor the dedicated individuals who train and care for these remarkable animals, and to celebrate the profound bond between service dogs and the individuals they serve. Now, therefore, I, Daniel McEachran, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, on behalf of the City Council, proudly proclaim National Service Dog Month in Portsmouth and call upon our residents and businesses to respect the important job they do in helping us live up to our motto, the City of the Open Door, given with my hand and the seal of the City of Portsmouth on this third day of September 2024. I'd like to Brendan, like to say anything at this moment or receive this?
Thank you for doing this.
Well, thanks for asking, Brendan. We even got the expensive camera? All right, no taxpayers looking at that. All right. Coach.
Just warms my heart.
No treats, no pop. Coach is like, hey. He's like, I'm tired. I gotta lay down.
So there are, I see we had quite a few, actually didn't have, no, we did have quite a few folks sign up for public comment. So what I'm going to ask, we had a public service announcement. Where is it, City Manager, if you're going to remind me, or is this something we're looking to?
It's actually a walk-on, Your Honor.
Okay, so it's a walk-on. That's a non-technical term for something that wasn't on the agenda. But just want to make sure that we ask Sarah McGregor, who's part of Dragonfly Mosquito Control Group, to be able to, if we can suspend the rules and hear from her, given the recent notices around EEE. I know my mom freaked out our daughter who was at the playground during dusk. So if we could ask Sarah to come up.
I move we suspend the rule.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Good evening. I thought it would be an opportune time to sort of get people up to speed with a rapidly changing situation with mosquito control disease this year in Rockingham County in particular. And if anyone had a chance to see the news tonight, they've also reported another horse in Northwood. There's been a horse in Kensington. We've all heard about the young 41-year-old man from Hampstead that died from Tripoli, and a number of mosquito batches throughout Rockingham County testing positive for not just Tripoli, but West Nile virus, and another disease called Jamestown Canyon virus. This is the first time in 10 years that New Hampshire's had human cases of Tripoli, and Massachusetts is dealing with their own outbreak of both West Nile and Tripoli. We are currently monitoring the mosquitoes in Portsmouth. We trap every week in 6 locations, and none of the mosquitoes thus far have tested positive at the state lab in Concord. We continue trapping weekly until mid-October, when the state stops testing. They continue testing animals and humans, but not mosquitoes. Currently, Portsmouth is in what's considered the low-risk category for disease. That could change if there was a batch of mosquitoes or an animal or a human case, but currently Portsmouth is considered low risk. Having said that, it's still important for people to take precautions, personal protective measures such as wearing repellent, long pants and long sleeves to protect yourself from mosquito bites, going in when mosquitoes are most active, which tends to be right around sunset. But all you need to do is walk in the woods and maybe you'll see mosquitoes during the day too. So just being aware of your surroundings and taking those protective measures, and check your own yard for water, buckets, tarps, a canoe, any container, any man-made container can hold water and produce 1,000 mosquitoes within a week. So it's important for every homeowner here to help out and try to get rid of mosquitoes. In conversations with Peter Rice, we've monitoring as much as we can and not recommending spraying at this time. That could change if we found Tripoli in Portsmouth or in an adjacent town, and we have outlined a fairly conservative approach if we get to that point. But we don't feel currently that Portsmouth is in need of further spraying. We continue to larvicide, monitoring wetlands. We've treated all the catch basins. That controls West Nile mosquitoes. So I think we've got a fairly comprehensive surveillance program throughout the city. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know I'm whipping through this kind of fast, but I know you've got a lot on your agenda tonight.
That's great. Councilor Bagley.
Thanks, Your Honor. And I asked the city manager about this earlier, but my understanding is the city of Portsmouth tests the water, but we also use something to prevent the birth of the mosquitoes or something along those lines that we actively do that is more effective than spraying?
That's correct. We larvicide with a bacteria called BTI, and we're out every week doing that, checking water. And it's more effective to control them while they're still in the water versus when they're flying around on the move, on the wing, and they don't care about boundaries. They can be coming in from another town, or they can be leaving Portsmouth and going to, Greenland or Rye or somewhere to bite.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Sarah, for the work you're doing here and for the update. I know that there's a lot of people that have reached out on this in particular, so appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Next up, we have the acceptance, we don't have acceptance of minutes, and we're on to public comment. Let's see, we have, did anybody feel as though they were supposed to sign up for public comment and didn't? Right now, just raise your hand. There's one. Okay. Would you like to just come up and sign up? Okay, so we will start.
Where do I sign?
Oh, just right here.
Right here, sir. Oh, you got a pen.
Okay, so there's quite a number of folks on this, not quite enough to limit public comment. You have 3 minutes when you get up here. If there's something that you hear and everybody has said all that you've come to say, brevity is an incredibly useful tool of persuasion, and you can simply stand up and say, I agree with everything they say. I just want you to know that I came here to speak on this very topic. It is helpful as well. But we will start with Julia Lanter on PPM TV. And if I don't call your name, it's because you're not a Portsmouth resident, and I put you to the back where we will call on you after we get through Portsmouth residents. Take it away, Julia.
Hi, my name's Julia Lanter. I live on South Street here in Portsmouth, and I'm a proud PHS graduate as well, so I'm a longtime lover of Portsmouth. I'm also standing you up for Portsmouth Public Media Station, and I respectfully ask the council to reevaluate the cable franchise fee so that PPM TV can continue its 14-year tradition of serving the Portsmouth community as a cultural, educational community center. In an era when book bans are on the rise and freedom of speech is at risk, we need our station more than ever. Thank you for your time today, allowing PPM TV to inform the public about what they do, and that no taxpayer funding is at risk here. With that, I just respectfully cede my time and thank the council again for hearing us out.
Thank you, Julia. Next up is Paul Gibson on the topic of WSCA 106.1 FM.
Thank you very much. I'll be as brief as I possibly can. I've met many of you before, actually many of you at the station. We've done meet city council members, I believe. I think I've been with you in the green room as well. So for those of you who don't know me, sorry, Nicole, I'm Paul Gilson. I'm the bookkeeper at WSCA 106.1 FM. We're up at the Button Factory. We're an all-volunteer community radio station. We have no employees. We run ourselves on bootstrings. The reason I wanted to talk today is to make sure that you understand that there is another community voice in Portsmouth, one of the few that are left, and we scrape by. We've actually been at our venue for 20 years now. We're coming up to our 20th anniversary on the 20th of September, I believe. 12. Yep. We've got 75 volunteers who volunteer at the station. We have 40 volunteer DJs who share different aspects, views, local content, their music. We interview people. We interviewed the Red Cross the other day, the AARP. We have community events at our space. We have a venue where we have local bands. We have about 200 bands a year, and we have 5,000 guests come through the Button Factory stage. We've even got our own drag troupe, believe it or not, which we're quite proud of. But it does cost money to run our station. It's really cheap. As I said, we don't have any employees. It costs us about $50,000 a year. But for that $50,000 a year, I think Portsmouth gets a lot of benefit. It really does. We are part of the emergency communication network. People can actually get us when everything else fails because we do have a signal that broadcasts across the seacoast. So I wanted to bring that up today to make sure you understand how important WSCA is. And if there's any way that you could fund us at all, that would be fantastic. It costs us $260 a month to pay our fibre bill, believe it or not, and it costs us $1,500 a month in rent, which is cheap for Portsmouth, but it's going to go up. The biggest thing that we're struggling with right now is we've got about an $80,000 equipment deficit. We've got so many old engineers who fix this stuff. They know how to fix it. We've got expertise in that, but we certainly need money to help us with that. So if there's any way you can see fit to help us, that would be absolutely fantastic. Nicole?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul and Nicole. Next up is Jake Webb on PPM TV.
Hello again. I spoke last time. My name is Jake Webb. I'm a resident of Portsmouth living at Monroe Street. And I'd like to start off today real quick. We have a lot of folks here who have come out to support PPM TV. If you are here to stand with us today, I ask that you don't stand, but rather just raise your hand for a moment. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for coming out, truly. I'm going to speak briefly about my experience with PPM TV personally, and then we'll move on. I, in 2014, was a PHS student. I joined the Clipper News Report, where I gained incredibly valuable skills in media production in that class, which was hosted at PPM TV and taught by PPM TV staff. That experience and the personal and professional connections I made there were life-changing. I spoke a little bit about this last time, but I really can't emphasize enough the value that what our programs do, the value that our programs provide for the young future filmmakers of our community. It's really a resource that doesn't exist anywhere else in that specific capacity. I think that pretty much covers it, so I appreciate you all hearing us out today, and I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Eddie's from Dover, so we're going to come back to Eddie, and then we have Beverly Hurst on PPM TV.
I just wanted to say a few words about how much Portsmouth Public Media TV has helped me. I discovered the exercise program at the beginning of the pandemic. And at first I couldn't do all the exercises, and then I was able to do all of them. And since 1997, I hadn't been able to sleep on either side because of my shoulders, 2 rotator cuff tears. After doing those exercises now, many years, several years later, I can sleep on my left side and my right side. And with this left arm, because of those exercises, and people know with rotator cuff tears, most people don't have this motion. And that is because of Alexis Mason and those exercises. And she would say, if it hurts, stop, shoulder length or lower, very carefully guiding me to what I can do today. I feel that education, high top priority. Exercise, high top priority. And something as important as someone being able to be at home and do exercises and get great quality of life, priceless. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Next up, we have Samantha Collins on the Cavaretta property.
Good evening. My name is Samantha Collins, and I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission. I want to begin by expressing my gratitude for your recent visits to the Cavaretta property. I think most of you were able to make it out there, that we now affectionately know as the 100-acre wood. I hope these site walks provided you with a better feel for how special this parcel is and offered insight into the vision of its future. I also hope that through these visits and the presentations made by Brian Hart and Dwayne Hyde, you were able to see how adept the Southeast Land Trust is at their job of conserving and stewarding properties such as this one. Their expertise assures us that this land will be well cared for and enhanced for future generations. As a reminder, the City of Portsmouth recognized the Cavaretta property as a high priority for conservation in its 2020 open space plan.
This parcel is the largest remaining privately owned, undeveloped land in the city, and its preservation aligns with the goals outlined in that plan. Given its recognized priority and the strong community support that has been demonstrated in recent weeks, and undoubtedly reinforced by the written public comments I'm sure you have received, I respectfully urge the city to uphold its commitment to its open space plan and support the Conservation Commission's unanimous vote to move forward with conserving the 100-acre wood. To gauge this support visibly and also respect your time, I'd like to ask those in the audience who are in favor of conserving this property with the money from the Conservation Fund to please raise their hand. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Samantha. Next up, Barbara McMillan on the Cavaretta property.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Barbara McMillan. I live at 84 Hillside Drive, and I am a current member of the Portsmouth Conservation Commission and currently the Vice Chair. I'm here to speak in favor of the Cavaretta property conservation easement. I recognize that you have heard from me before. I spoke at your last meeting. I went to both the site walks and South's neighborhood public meeting. But I did want to add that these events have been a great example of how South's experience can move these partnerships forward and support this effort in the long run. They really know the property. They know what can be done. They know what needs to be done, who can do it. And they are passionate about understanding the communities and the homeowners or the property owners' needs. They are actively getting financial support from grants and other contributions in addition to this request. They will steward the property in the future. This is a great opportunity, and I think it's the once-in-a-lifetime kind. Thank you for your time, and I hope you can support this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Next up is Talia Sperduto on the Cavaretta property. Is Talia? Oh, she is. Hanging over on that side.
Hi, Talia Sperduto, 675 South Street. I'm also a current member of the Conservation Commission. I will keep this short because we've already heard great things about the Cavaretta property, but for me, I think we're faced with an incredible opportunity here, which is really priceless. In 40 years, if we do not protect this property now, it will likely be developed, and the offerings that it has for a wildlife corridor and also future use to the public in 30 to 40 years are priceless. And I think that this is the perfect use for the Conservation Fund. This is why we have it, and it's an incredible opportunity for us to take advantage of. I think if we choose not to make this decision, then we may not even know of the impacts that will come with development of this 100-acre parcel that has been here historically serving our city and wildlife and people. So thank you.
Thank you, Talia. Next up is Karen Webb for PPM TV.
Good evening. Thank you. My name's Karen Webb, and I live on Sagamore Ave in Portsmouth and have been a Portsmouth resident for about 30 years. I'm here tonight to speak in support of modifying the current cable franchise allocation to PPM TV. As a resident with 3 children who have been through the school system, I've personally seen its impact on our kids. You've already heard from my son, Jacob, more than once, and his story is not unlike the several others that you have seen or will hear tonight. The experience he had through the PHS class with this station and their award-winning staff ignited his passion for filmmaking and launched his career. The connections he made through the station provided him with filmmaking opportunities all over the globe, opportunities that would not have been offered otherwise. I'm also the director of a local business and a sponsor of the station. So from that perspective, I see firsthand the benefit of having a purely local channel at our fingertips. Collaborating with these communication experts and having access to the studio supports us, which in turn allows us to contribute more significantly to this Portsmouth local economy. PPM TV is one of Portsmouth's best assets. It records history, it attracts visitors, advertises our culture, supports our businesses and economy, all to viewers around the globe. Letting this very successful key community resource go would be a huge loss to residents and a mistake. You all have the power to recognize the value of this extraordinary Portsmouth asset, what it already provides, and the potential of the station to do even more for this community. So I advocate tonight for you to make a little but not insignificant mark on our history and do the right thing and provide the proper support. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next up is Amanda Smith on the Cavaretta property.
Hello, friends, neighbors, and Portsmouth City Council members. My name is Amanda Smith, and I'm a resident of Portsmouth. I live in Elwyn Park, so a neighbor to the Cavaretta property. And I am here this evening to voice my support of the city partnering with SELT to purchase the Cavaretta property. As Portsmouth continues to grow, it's more important than ever to protect our green spaces, as there is limited opportunity to conserve land in the city. My friends and family and I in Portsmouth appreciate the council's serious consideration of this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Next up, we have Tim Quinney on the Cavaretta property.
Good evening. My name is Tim Quinney. I've been a resident of Portsmouth since 2014. I'm here tonight to voice my, unwavering endorsement of the 100-acre wood, largely because I'm really concerned it's going to turn to the 100-unit wood, because that's the trend we've seen in this city. As a resident over the last decade, what I've observed is a loss of balance, I would say, with city priorities and a massive expansion of development of all kinds, congestion, which is leading to a drain on city infrastructure and resources, and subsequently taxes increasing for residents. This is a great opportunity to use funds that exist that are earmarked for conservation to do their exact purpose and restore some of that balance. So I ask you tonight to pass a motion to support releasing the funds for the SELT project. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next up, Barbara Ward on the topic of PPM TV.
Hello, I'm Barbara Ward. I live at 16 Nixon Park in Portsmouth and work downtown at 222 Court Street at the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire. I want to speak again tonight and make a couple more points about how important it is for us to have PPM TV in our city. PPM TV programming over the years has emphasized serving the underserved, from exercise programs for elderly people with limited mobility to programs providing information on navigating services for the disabled. I mentioned last time that PPM TV was vital to the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire in its early years. The cable franchise fee paid to the city is meant to support the government channel and public access media. PPM TV has served Portsmouth high school students as well as public producers for the last 14 years. In most towns where cable franchise fees go entirely to the local public access channel, they do not have the same difficulties that we are having. I urge you to follow their example to save this valuable asset to the city of Portsmouth, to give us an open door and access for all of our residents to this media outlet. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Next up, Peter Walklin on the topic of Cavaretta.
Mayor McCacken and members of the City Council, I'm Peter Laughlin. I live on Thaxter Road. Protection of land involves several key components. The first is a landowner interested in protecting his or her property from development. It is such a momentous decision that it generally takes years to come to fruition. SELT has been talking with Joe Cavaretta for 12 years. Chet and Billy Knoll anguished over their property for 25 years before protecting it, and John Hett worried about what to do to protect his property on Beverly Hill Road for over 20 years before a conservation easement went into effect in 1988. Why does it take so long? Besides the process leading up to the landowner reaching a comfort level with protecting the land, a funding mechanism must be in place. Joe Cavaretta, like Chet and Billy Knoll and John Hett before him, is giving up his single greatest asset, the development rights to his land that he has maintained, protected, and cherished for his entire lifetime. We are at one of those very rare moments in the modern history of Portsmouth where we have a landowner interested in protecting land forever, who is willing to make an incredibly generous financial contribution to promote the public good, and the very complex components of funding are in place. So why a conservation easement with SELT instead of the city? I have 7 acres that I'm trying to keep open forever. There's some restrictions on it. I don't think they're adequate for the future. I've been talking to SELT. Because I'm not expecting to get any money, and maybe cost me money, but I see an agreement with SELT will give me the assurance and insurance that it will forever remain open space. I know and I'm very fond of, and always been very fond of, most of all city officials in the last 50 years. And I trust the city officials, but it's not a matter of trust. In terms of an entity, I want to deal with an entity whose sole purpose is to protect open space and which has in place the staff, practices, policies, and culture to protect it. The price, in 1988, the city participated in the protection of 55 acres of the Het Farm. It cost us $225,000 to the city. When we drive down Peverly Hill Road, I think as citizens of Portsmouth, we can all be proud that the city had the foresight to preserve the view of a pasture rather than a row of townhouses, which would have happened as we see the rest of Peverly Hill developing. I think you will take equal pride with any action to protect the Cavaretta land. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Next up is Esther Kennedy on sewage and taxes.
Good evening. Esther Kennedy, 41 Pickering Ave. And Peter said it all. I do hope you protect the land, and I do hope you save our only real communication, the radio station. But with that said, first and foremost, you have to properly fix the sewage treatment plant. The sludge presses are still not working. The smell and odors are still out of control. And I'm really worried about more building until you get our infrastructure fixed. We see the sludge trucks going all the time. And I guess I have always, one of the reasons I ran first time for city council was because of the sewage treatment plant. And unfortunately, folks, it's still a problem. It's still part of your infrastructure. So I don't know how we're going to get it fixed, but we need to do something, and we need to do something sooner rather than later. We heard in July that everything I brought forward was true from your own city officials. And their comment made by the mayor was, but we got a trophy. I'm sorry, sir, the trophy should never have been given to us because we're still having problems. So I ask you all to, before we start moving forward with all these builds, to really make sure our infrastructure is stable and can handle it. And right now, with no sludge presses and no odor defense, it is not. I'll save the tax part for the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Next up is Justin Richardson on the SELT easement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Justin Richardson, 586 Woodbury Avenue. I'm really going to defer to what other people said, the 10-point presentation here. I'm just going to skip to the one point that I really thought was important to hear. And that's, I'm an amateur botanist, wannabe entomologist. I go out into nature all the time, and I'm always impressed with the SELT properties that I see everywhere in Rockingham and Stratford counties. I think this is a great investment in a partnership that will yield benefits for a long time. I listened to the comments and questions on August 18th, so I'll just respond to a couple points. One was Councillor Bagley asked about water supply, and I know from going around their conservation areas around Blue Job, CELT has made significant investments in protecting Rochester's water supply there. And at the Stonehouse Pond in Barrington, there's been a lot of significant improvements since CELTS became involved in their conservation properties there, improving the trail system that I love, relocating trails that were in rough shape in sensitive areas to better locations. I think this is an excellent opportunity and investment for Portsmouth to move forward with this organization and leverage even more benefits in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Next up is Nicole Byer on CELT.
Hi, I'm Nicole Byer, and I live in the Woodlands. I'm here tonight to ask the City Council to support the partnership with CELT to acquire the conservation easement on the 100-acre woods and to provide the $1 million of conservation funding. I attended the public forum last week, and I was so excited to hear about their plans to conserve the land. In addition to protecting wildlife, natural resources, and water quality, this land will provide future green space for generations to come and enjoy. Thank you for your support and for your time.
Thank you, Nicole. Next up, Jim Lee on the topic of kayak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Jim Lee, Sagamore Avenue, Portsmouth. I'm the current chairman of the Veterans Committee at the Portsmouth Elks Club. So this September the 17th, we're having our 5th annual Disabled Veterans Kayak event at the Lodge at the end of Jones Avenue. We take about 35 to 40 disabled veterans and put them in kayaks, along with the help of the New England Healing Sports Association. The Portsmouth Harbor Master leads our little flotilla down Sagamore Creek to the Wentworth by the Sea Marina, back to the Lodge where we have lunch with them and hang out for the afternoon. This year we're having a special presentation for 2 of our veterans from the Quilts of Valor organization. They're going to drape 2 of our veterans with Quilts of Valor for their military service. So I'd like to invite all of you to drop by if you can. Bring your kayak, bring your paddleboard, and of course bring your paddle so you won't be down the creek without one. And September 17th, we're in the water at 11 o'clock. I'll send you a special invitation, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. It's a great event. Next up, James Shanley on the CELT easement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. My name is James Shanley. I live at 170 McKinley Road. For all the wonderful previous positive reasons to support the CELT purchase, the 100-acre woods, please do. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Next up is, I think it's Christina Lesky on the police station.
Christina Lusky, 94 Odeorn Point Road, Portsmouth. When discussing the proposal for Portsmouth's new police station, a neighbor asked me, why does a small city like Portsmouth, with a small population and a small crime problem, need such a large police station? You should consider reducing the size of, and hence the cost of, this project, especially in light of imminent property revaluations, which may result in increased taxes for many residents. I don't buy the argument that because we have a large number of non-residents commuting to work here and we attract more tourists than most other New Hampshire towns, it automatically follows that we must have an enormous police station. The people who come to Portsmouth to work, shop, dine, or sightsee come here to earn their money or to spend it, not to commit crimes. It's not the location of the police station that's the problem. It's the location combined with the design, the size, and the cost. I don't buy the mayor's argument that it's okay for the new building to block stunning natural views because the city, quote, has a lot of great sight lines. This breathtaking view is unique, and with the wrong design, it could be lost forever. With the rapid pace of development Portsmouth is experiencing and planning, soon there won't be many sight lines and open spaces left. Natural beauty is precious, and there is only a finite amount of it. We should not be so cavalier about giving it up. I encourage artists and photographers to memorialize these views now while we still have them. We should not minimize the potential impact of constructing an oversized police station on the ambiance and even the future of our farmers market, or on the public's ability and desire to attend city council meetings. I don't buy the argument that the final product will be much better than the massing exercise because it will contain doors and windows. Adding doors and windows and making minor design modifications will not alter the fact that it will still be too big. A reduction in scale is also necessary. Heed Councillor Cook's request for the formula for square footage per employee in a police station. Finally, I want you to think about the message that we'll be sending to outsiders by building a gigantic fortress-like police station. It will imply that Portsmouth is a dangerous place with a sizable criminal population, so out-of-towners would be wise to stay away. Let's not send this message.
Thank you, Christina. Next up, Anthony Balakier. Get that correct?
Close enough.
How do you pronounce it? Balakier.
Not close.
Not close.
You nailed the Anthony part.
I got the Anthony part. Thank you, brother.
Good evening, members of City Council. My name is Anthony Balakier. I'm a resident of Portsmouth. Also live in the Woodlands on FW Hartford Drive. And Mayor, I'm going to take your lead or suggestion on the spirit of brevity and simply state that I am here to endorse my support for the 100-acre wood project and agree with all the great things that have been said and all the great things that will continue to be said on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Next up, Sue Steary on the topic of SELT.
Hi, I'm Sue Sterry. I live on Broad Street in Portsmouth. I just want to give a quick perspective on SELT. I've been a lifelong resident here. When I was 9 years old, I moved out to Maple Haven, which is Ocean Road. For those who aren't familiar, it's way out on the edge of town, in one of the first houses built out there. When I got on the bus every day to go to school, I lived in the country. I mean, there was nothing between Ocean Road until you got to Ellen Park, basically. So it was in the country. We played in all the fields and everything else out there. And I'm not objecting to all the progress that's gone in the city of Portsmouth, but what I'd like to point out is there has to be a balance. I know we need low-income housing, and we need this, and we need that. But from a perspective of what that was, I won't say how many years ago, we need the balance. And this 100 acres would be perfect, because if Dr. Pinkerton adds his 45, it will just keep adding up. So please support the purchase of the 100 acres. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Next up is Peter Ahuda on property assessments.
Peter Huda, 280 South Street. As a resident awaiting my property tax bill with bated breath, and after reading the 8:30 article in the Herald, I had some questions. And it seemed to me that this process is backwards. So having no idea if I'm correct or not, I decided to go online, and I knew New Hampshire would have some kind of publication that would help me. And I found it. Online, they have Understanding New Hampshire Property Taxes, the official New Hampshire Assessing Reference Manual. It's a reference manual for selectmen, counselors, assessors, and taxpayers, me. So the first thing that I noticed that was a little wonky is that the whole process would be just starting this week. So the first thing, and I'll reference the pages so you could look this up, and I know this is going to help you because it helped me a lot. So the first one is page 2-11, and it says municipal dates. So the first thing I had a question about is why it seemed to me like this was late. So the first date in here is the last day to submit the MS1, the Summary of Inventory Valuations, is September 1st, which was Sunday, so it was probably due last week. And then I went, as I read through and I referenced what Roseanne was saying here. Basically, she had to have it in last week, and we're not going to have any idea what our bills were for 4 weeks in September, the 4th week in September. So I guess my first question would be, as a resident, how can I come before you or anybody else when I don't have my bill? To have somebody come and explain this early is, I guess I'm struggling to see what purpose it's going to serve. The next thing I would like to bring to your attention is on page 8.1. And 8.1 describes public relations. It says, the basis for good public relations is to honor the golden rule of treating the public as you would like to be treated. Good public relations start with honesty. Let people know exactly when the property taxes will change, if the budget is supposed to go up. So my question to you is, as you start going through this process, do you think the best public relations timing for your 2 meetings this week is at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? Because I can make it, but people who are working to pay their property taxes are probably not going to make it because they're working. And I know I couldn't use that as an excuse to get off work early, to come and listen to a presentation like that. So that's one of my first questions. So I'm going to have to skip the whole rest of the thing. Well, I just want to hit the pages, if I may, Mayor. These are very important.
Please email them to us. We'd take them under advisement. Appreciate it, Petra.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Bob Gunning on property assessments as well.
Bob Gunning, 43 Humphreys Court, here in Portsmouth. I understand from the paper I was reading the other day that there's a talk of raising the assessment exemptions amount. And if the exemptions are raised, so should the income and assets thresholds. One goes, the other should go with it based on the same reasons, that one's going up, the other should go up also. But more than that, I believe they should be eliminated altogether because they are fundamentally unfair. If one plans better, works harder, and spends less, they pay more. One who does not pays less. Also, like me, if one wants to continue working, they potentially pay more. So I ask that the field be leveled by granting the exemptions based solely on age. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And we're going back to let's see, Eddie Pimansan of Dover on PPM TV.
Thank you. A little bit nervous because I'm not a resident and I have a speech typed out, so get your tomatoes ready. My name is Eddie Pimansan. I'm a resident of Dover, longtime PPM TV volunteer, and recent addition to the PPM TV board. When I was younger, I attended the Portsmouth Film Festival and was amazed at how vibrant and creative the Portsmouth film scene was for the city. A friend of mine was on the team for one of the featured projects during the festival. I remember seeing her walk around with a nifty Media Pass lanyard. And when speaking to her, I remember her presenting this air of confidence and wisdom during our conversation. I was in awe, so I asked her about how I could get involved. She told me about PPM TV, a place I had never heard of before, and said that it would be a great place to introduce myself and get some hands-on experience. Eventually, I mustered up the nerve to visit the PPM TV station. I was a fan of movies and TV, but had zero production experience to speak of at that point. Part of me was nervous, as I didn't want to come off as naive or incompetent. But once I walked through the doors of the station, I was greeted by Bill and Chad, the executive director and operations manager at the time. They were eager to welcome me into the space, answer my questions, and set my nervousness at ease. Within the hour, we were already talking about my first assignment as a volunteer. That experience was the first of many that I've had the pleasure of participating in with PPM TV. Throughout my time at the station, I've been provided crucial opportunities to develop technical skills for film and television production. On top of that, I was able to develop transferable skills in problem solving, creative thinking, effective communication, negotiation, time management, and collaboration. To this day, I credit the station and its staff for giving a clueless volunteer like me off the street a chance to be a part of a larger community and a professional foundation from which to develop. Even though I was unaware of its presence at first, PPM TV proved to be a real diamond in the rough, a good place with good people doing good things, whether people knew it or not. I encourage the City Council to give PPM TV a chance the same way I did, because I know what the organization can do when given a fair shot. When residents and visitors alike explore the city, we want to encourage them to create memories they can cherish. With your support, PPM TV can continue capturing these moments and live up to our goal of being Portsmouth's time capsule. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Okay, that was our last speaker that signed up for public comment. We have a couple of ordinances that, and if they didn't have public comment, I'd bring the other ones forward. So we'll go through that, and then we're right on to the first is a quick one that we should be able to set the date for a parking utilization study, and then we'll go into the SELT presentation, and then we will have the PPM TV or we'll have the SELT discussion in the PPM TV broadcast or conversation after that. So we're just going to keep the agenda as it's stated and move through the public hearings really. The first one's the first reading of ordinance amending Chapter 1, Article 4, Section 1.412, Public Art Review Committee, existing text to be deleted in its entirety and replaced with a brief reference to a new section in Chapter 1, Article 17 relating to public art, and Chapter 1, Article 17 funding of public art, sections 1.1700 through 1.1707, existing text to be deleted in its entirety and replaced with a new Article 17 retitled Funding, Review, and Acquisition of Public Art, inclusive of new sections 1.1700 through 1.1709. Is there a motion?
Your Honor, I move to pass first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading to be held at the September 23rd, 2024 City Council meeting.
Second. Any discussions or questions? Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know that this can sound confusing when you're reading through it. Essentially,
speaking it.
Yes, can be very confusing, but what we essentially did is we took the two public art ordinances, one establishing the committee and one establishing the Percent for Art funding program, and combined those with our public art policy as well, just to create one ordinance. So there were some minor changes as well, increasing the funding threshold so that we don't trigger the public art ordinance until we hit $5 million, but we also raised the upper threshold as well for that, basically because of changes in cost of living. $3 million is a low amount, and so I think we were thinking about really where that comes in play. And then we also put in provisions to make sure that we could expend funds from the Public Art Trust per request of the trustees of trust funds. Other than that, there are not major changes here to these ordinances. And if you have any questions, you can see the red line version in your packet from the last City Council meeting. And I'm happy to answer any of those.
Seeing no questions, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have our two public hearings on adoption of resolutions. Public hearing, adoption of resolution pursuant to RSA 72:39-B. The city hereby amends the elderly exemption from property tax based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers. Qualifying taxpayers between the ages of 65 to 64 shall receive $375,000 off their assessment. Qualifying taxpayers between the ages of 75 through 79 shall receive $450,000 off their assessment, and qualifying taxpayers 80 plus years of age shall receive $525,000 off their assessment. And now we have a presentation by our city assessor. Roseanne, you're already ready to go. And so we will then have questions and open it up to public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Tonight I'm going to do a brief presentation on the elderly and disabled recommended exemption levels.
First slide. So annually, the City of Portsmouth reviews income and asset levels. And this past winter, we looked at the income and asset levels for the disabled and the elderly exemptions and increased those to $54,000 for single and $70,793,000 for married. And no adjustment was made for the asset limit. So at that meeting, I asked, since we were going through reevaluation, that I come back when we were getting close to setting values to look at the exemption levels. So this slide, we're looking at the current exemption levels, which are for, as you know, is 65 to 74 is currently 235,000. 75 to 79 is 285. 80 plus is 335, and disabled is 235. So those exemption levels are approximately 49% of the assessed value, which was about $482,000 for 65 to 74. 75 to 79 was about 59%. 80 plus was 70%, and for the disabled was 49%. Now, we have estimated that the single-family median assessment is going to increase to about $750,000, this revaluation. So when we look at that and we look at where the exemption level is today and where the assessment is going to, we would be dropping to about 31% for 65 to 74, 38% for 75 to 79, 45% for 80 plus, and 31% for disabled. So it's a significant drop in their exemption level to where the new median assessment is going to be. So this chart goes back and looks at the assessments since 2015, and you can see that basically we've been increasing it, but in 2020, the council looked at the exemption levels and increased them to where the revaluation was for 2019, and you can see that it was pretty level. But in 2025, you can see the spike going to $750,000 and the exemption level not changing. So my proposed exemption levels would be to probably bring it around to where we are at 50, 60, 70, 50%, so to where the median assessed value is going to be. So I'm proposing bringing the assessment level up for 65 to 74 to $375,000 off their assessed values, 75 to 79, $450,000 off the assessed value, and 80 plus $525,000 off the assessed value, and disabled $375,000. So in view of the change in the median single-family assessed value for fiscal year 25 and to maintain the exemption levels in comparison to prior years, it is recommended to adjust them to these levels I just stated. This slide shows historical exemption amounts, and again, it shows that as we've been increasing the assessed values, we've been maintaining the exemption levels. If we did nothing, and you look at the last bar charts for it says no change, there's a huge spike. If we increase it, it brings it to where the same levels are that we've been maintaining over the past 10 or so years. So the recommendation will avoid a decline in tax relief for those approved for the elderly and disabled exemption, and any adjustment approved would be for the tax bill as of April 1st, 2024, fiscal year 25, with the first bill being due in December of 2024, and the second bill being due June of 2025. Sorry, that was very fast.
Thank you, Roseanne. Any questions from the council on this? Councilor Bagley.
Thanks, Your Honor. First, I want to thank Roseanne for bringing this forward in a timely manner, so we were able to make these changes so there wouldn't be a year that it was missed and everyone had to pay the higher taxes. Something that comes up often when people ask me questions about this, and I just want you to confirm for everyone, is the exemption is for things other than your residence. So when we talk about the exemption, it doesn't include the value of your home. It would include the value of your pension, your 401k, second home, things like that, but not the value of your primary residence.
Right, it excludes the value of your primary residence, but if you rent a portion of your primary residence out, it is adjusted for the portion that is not rent or that is rented.
Great, thank you.
Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you also for coming forward and being proactive in trying to find ways to help our taxpayers who are the least able to pay these tax bills. So when we increase, say we maintain a 50% level, but if someone's property value increases from $500,000 to $750,000, that exemption at $500,000 is $250,000. So they pay taxes on $250,000 in assessment. If their property increases to $750,000 and we're still giving them that 50% rate, they get a $375,000 discount, but they're paying taxes all of a sudden on $375,000 in property value. So essentially, their bill is going to go up.
Correct.
I'm a little concerned as to how this will impact some of the individuals who, say, are disabled, who are currently on really a set income that doesn't increase significantly enough to pay that differential of additional taxes on $125,000 in value.
Mm-hmm.
Say their house increases to the medium rate. Is there anything else that we can do beyond this level to support those individuals?
There are, we have another type of exemption that's offered for individuals that are disabled or elderly, where they come in and they can apply to have a portion of their assessment put in what's called, it's a type of lien, where the city will put a lien on the property for the property taxes that are due. Or we also have a hardship type of program that we look at. So there are other avenues if people's taxes do go up and it's substantial even after this increase, to come into my office and talk to us about either the lien program or seeing if there's something the city could do as far as looking at the taxes on a hardship basis. And it's the elderly exemption lien. It's actually a statutory program also.
And can I follow that up? Is there a way to get back to the council some clear numbers on the number of individuals that will be impacted, that their property taxes increase more than, say, the exemption provides relief for? Say they're going to have this gap because of their increase?
Once our assessments are finished, then yeah, I would be able to do something like that. But for right now, I mean, if you don't want to vote on this right now and you want to wait, that's fine. As long as I have this done before the MS1 is finished, which I don't expect to have until probably sometime the third week or hopefully the third week of October, we can come back and look at it again if you don't want to vote on it tonight.
I guess my last follow-on is there anything preventing us from increasing this again if we find out before October that there are a significant number of individuals impacted?
I'm not sure. That would be a legal question to ask as far as if the statutes allow a second vote on it. I personally don't see why not, but it's something I would have to look into.
Thank you.
Sometimes government can be counterintuitive. So
Yeah. I mean, I've never had that question before. I don't see why not, because we're not at the point where they're under a statutory deadline to file for the exemption. We're just requesting an increase in the amounts. So as long as we have that done before the tax rate's set, I don't think there's a problem.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, Roseanne, can you speak to the competitiveness of the exemption level, the exemptions and the recognition we provide relative to cities and towns in the state? Do you have a sense of that?
Well, I've been looking at what other communities are doing, especially during these type of revaluations, and it's funny that they're not increasing those exemption levels for their taxpayers. Portsmouth is a leader in that regards. We go out and we do surveys every year to see where we are in comparison. But the surrounding communities usually take a year to catch up. We're just being proactive at this point, and I think because of what's been happening in the market, if we're not, it's really going to impact our disabled and elderly. So I think Portsmouth is very concerned, and I've always taken the direction from the city council that they want this to be at the forefront, especially during a revaluation. So I think it's been said that we probably lead the state of New Hampshire, and if we vote on this tonight or even in the future, we probably will be still right in the beginning of where everybody else is at. But I expect more communities next year will start to increase their exemptions, and maybe next year again we look at it again. But I think this year is a good year to be doing it.
I'm going to follow up since the MS1 topic came up earlier in public comment, and I know you just mentioned MS1. Can you speak to why we seek an extension?
We seek an extension every year. Every year I've been here, we seek an extension. The main reason on a non-revaluation year is because we don't get the utility values from the Department of Revenue Administration probably until the middle or end of October. So we seek extensions because we're waiting for values from the state of New Hampshire. This year's from revaluation and utility values.
Council Moreau.
It was also brought up earlier as to the asset levels, which I know we actually increased those in the last year or two. Are we required by statute to have asset levels, or is that not?
There's minimum levels, but we have a modified exemption level that we increase them. So we go for the optional amount, and I don't remember offhand what they are, but they're very low.
But we are required to at least do the minimum.
Yeah, we're required to do the minimum. We far exceed that minimum.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions of the council before public hearing? Do we have a legal inquiry on whether or not we can update this in October if the...
Multiple times? You certainly could. There's nothing in the statute that would prevent you from further modifying it.
Okay. So without further council questions, we'll have public hearing speakers. Now, we have this on both the senior, and we also have another public hearing for disabled as well, but we will start the public hearing speakers for the elderly exemption.
Esther Kennedy, 41 Pickering. I'd like to thank Councilor Cook. She brought up a lot of the questions and things that I've researched. I personally would hope that you would hold off on this. I think it's very unfair to the taxpayers to bring it forward without even having them have an idea until tonight. We found out what the assessment average home was going to be. So I really think people need to have the right to come and speak with information. And they don't have that information until your public input session. I don't even know if there's input tomorrow night, but your public session about the assessment, and then your meeting that you're having as a council. Folks, we can look around. We can see what Portsmouth is going for. My fear is not the South End. My fear is not Ellen Park. But my fear is some of the modular homes that have gone up a huge amount. Some of our trailer parks that have gone up a huge amount. And when you look at the percentage of how much they have gone up with what people are used to paying, it's going to be really hard for a lot of our citizens. And you have to get this right. Now, I agree, someone getting older, that it'd be nice if it was based on age and not income. But I also know the law, and you do have to do a percentage of that. And I do commend you for going above it. But it's not fair to have this vote and not have people really take and look at what's going to happen to their assessed values. That's just not fair. So I would ask that you would vote to put off second reading until at least after your input sessions on Wednesday at 5 o'clock and Thursday at 5 o'clock. I agree with Ms. Huda. 5 o'clock is a horrific time. If you truly want to meet the public, you should probably have two sessions. One for 9 o'clock in the morning and one for 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night, if you're truly working with the public. This is huge. I know Councilor Bagley tried to put online about a pie. That was very simplified, And you can put another thing, 30, 30, 30. That is in all the online stuff too. But this is bigger than that. Because we're hitting neighborhoods that really have been kind of constant over the years. And they're going to be hit hard. And they don't have necessarily potentially the disposable income as other neighborhoods. So if we're truly looking at affordable housing, then I would ask you to wait until everyone has their numbers. Everyone has the information, so they can come here and speak to you about their concern. I think that is what you owe the citizens of Portsmouth with this huge thing that's going to hit us all hard, called the assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Any other public hearing speakers?
Hi, I'm Sue Sterry, and I live on Broad Street. My question, which I know I can't answer now, is we do have a lot of rental properties in this city, and whatever the assessment's going to be, those prices are going to be passed on to renters. And I know just on Broad Street, there are a number of retired people living in the apartments, not only where I live, but in other apartment buildings along the way. What's going to happen to those people who will be put over the limit of what they can afford to rent at? And we already know that there is no place to go to where the rents are going to be lower within a 50-mile radius of here. So even if you couldn't live in Portsmouth, you still can't live in Greenland or Hampton or Rye or Salisbury or any of those places, because we're all in the same boat. What happens to those people? We have waiting lists on our housing authority that are 3, 4, 5 years old, I've been told. So what happens to those people? You know, that's my question. What happens? They have no place to go, and to wait 5 years to move into housing in Portsmouth, what are we going to do? So I would like that more incorporated on what's going to be passed on to renters at this point in time, too, or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Any other speakers on the elderly exemptions?
Peter Huda, 280 South Street. So I'm going to point something out to you that I couldn't finish before, but I think this is very important to everybody. First, I'd like to thank you for increasing the exemptions, but I also urge you to wait until we get our bills, until everybody gets their bills and understand what's in there. I want to call your attention to that manual that I mentioned on page 14.7, and it says, section 14.6, the effect of a revaluation. While individual property taxes may go up or down or remain the same, the total amount of monies collected by the municipality is not affected by the revaluation. The budget process takes place immediately in each municipality, including cities, towns, and incorporated places. The amount of money to be collected to fund those approved budgets is set during the annual meetings and does not change dependent upon whether a municipality conducts a reevaluation or not. The total amount of revenue to be generated by this municipality's property tax bills is determined by their budget. There's a big box on that page that has the best advice that is in there for all of us who don't know what's going on here. Real estate taxes as a whole are not affected by the revaluation, but by the budget process. Just something for you to ponder. I will be attending all your meetings to help you out. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra. Any other speakers? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any additional council questions and deliberations? Councilor Bagley?
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate Councilor Cook's comments and the public speaker's comments. I would propose with the legal advice that we can make a change, that we go forward with tonight, because I know there's a number of residents out there that get this exemption, and if we vote it down or if we postpone it, I think we're going to cause undue anxiety. I think we should pass what we have tonight because we know the numbers are in the right ballpark, and we can adjust them if needed. But I think if we hold off on passing this, we might be sending the wrong message, because I know this council takes a lot of pride in leading the state with these exemptions.
Any other questions, Councilor Blaylock?
Thank you, Your Honor. I certainly, want to protect our residents, especially the ones that are on a fixed income. But I just want to clarify, there's nothing we can do for renters or rent control, correct, under this? I'm just trying to clarify for the public. I know we're under this exemption, it is only for.
Yep, so, yeah, we're taking up senior and disabled tax exemption, or property
I just
tax
wanted to
exemptions.
clarify for the public. But yeah, I appreciate Roseanne's presentation, but I think it's important, since we know property valuations are going to go up, to look after our residents that are stuck on a fixed income.
Yeah, unfortunately, no, there's no statutory process for renting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I wanted to say that I agree with Councilor Bagley completely on this. I think we should move forward because we need to increase these numbers. But if we get numbers that look like we're going to have huge numbers of individuals who are impacted, then I would be happy to bring forward changes before we hit the time limit on those changes.
Thank you. I'll just add that as revaluations are occurring and occurring the first time in 5 years as statutorily required, we will see property values increase, as is evident based on home sales and a lot of other math that goes into it. With that, tax rates will fall. This is an effort to make sure that our seniors and those that are disabled and can't work are lessened if there is going to be an impact on them, given the greater valuations of their home. So I will certainly support this. I'm thankful for Roseanne to bring this forward. And this started a process. I know we've done the revaluations, and back when John and I were first on the council to have all those conversations earlier about how could we be doing more. This is one way to do that. So look forward to passing this, and I believe that there needs to be a roll call vote. Is that right, Kel?
We need a motion.
Oh, do we have an motion?
Yeah,
All right.
we have a motion.
Assistant
Your Honor,
Mayor.
I move to adopt the resolution as presented. Second.
Do we need a roll call? No, we don't. We're not spending.
We're not spending
Okay.
money, but
All right.
we can if you want to.
No, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, now we have a public hearing adoption, the resolution pursuant to RSA 72:37-B. The city hereby amends the disabled exemption from property tax based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers. Qualifying taxpayers shall receive $375,000 off their assessment. This was the same presentation that we just had. So if there's no council questions, I will open it up directly to public comment. Anybody speaking to, for, or against the exemptions for those that are disabled? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any additional council questions or deliberations? Councilor Denton.
Your Honor, I move to adopt the resolution as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much, Roseanne, and we will see you on Wednesday and Thursday for those following at home. Next up, we are on to City Manager Conard's items which require action.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two quick items. The first is a request to hold a work session at the right before the next council meeting on September 23rd, which would give the parking staff and our consultant, Andy Hill of Desmond, an opportunity to bring to the public the work that's been done to date by the Parking Utilization Study Advisory Committee, and to speak to their findings to date and to discuss consideration of recommendations going forward as it relates to parking needs and parking-related zoning matters. So the request would be to schedule a work session at 6 p.m. in advance of the next council meeting.
Your Honor, I move to schedule a work session at 6 p.m. on September 23rd, 2024.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Stealing your thunder.
That's okay. Item 2 of 2 is the request brought forward by the Southeast Land Trust in support of conserving the land discussed earlier tonight, located at 820 Elwyn Road. The Southeast Land Trust Group, known as SELT, is a local nonprofit which conserves and stewards land in Rockingham and Stratford counties. As has been mentioned, SELT has been working with the property owner, Mr. Joe Cavaretta, for over a decade to identify an opportunity to place a majority of this parcel into conservation. As also was mentioned, members of SELT provided a helpful presentation at our last council meeting. There were 2 site walks that were held, and a majority of the council did attend, as did staff and Conservation Commission members. Something that was requested and discussed with some councilors between meetings was the concept of considerations for the city, and as such, Deputy City Attorney provided those to the council in the form of a memo to me, through me, to the council, and it would suggest ways in which the grant agreement between the city and SELT could be structured to give the city as many opportunities as possible. So I will stop talking there. The memo provided by Deputy City Attorney McCourt speaks to amending our motion, our proposed motion slightly to consider terms in a grant agreement that would be consistent with those in his memorandum.
Your Honor, I would move to support the July 17th, 2024 vote of the Conservation Commission and spend up to $1 million from the Conservation Fund to support the purchase of the conservation easement at 820 Elwyn Road, known as the Cavaretta property or the 100-acre wood, in Portsmouth, with the execution of a grant agreement consistent with the grant agreement terms listed in the memo from Deputy City Attorney McCourt, included in the supplemental City Council packet.
Second.
Any further discussion? Councilor Bagley.
Thanks, Your Honor. I think it's no secret I've had a lot of questions about this. I want to thank city staff and the members of SELT and Mr. Cavaretta, who joined us on the site walks, for answering a great deal, many of those questions, very satisfactory in many cases. I had initially questions about why we were using money towards land here instead of money to buy land to protect our water supply at the reservoir. The money I learned was money that we have in a trust, and that trust comes from land that is, I believe, in use, and when that land is then developed, because they get a tax abatement, there's a 10%, I believe, penalty, and that gets put into the trust, and we have the money in this trust, and it's very limited what we can use it for, and this qualifies, and the land at the Bellamy Reservoir I don't believe does. So there's been a series of back and forths. The primary concern I think I had is they had, SELT and the landowner had 12 years to kind of develop this plan, and a lot of work went into it, but it was only brought to the council's attention about a month ago. So we've kind of had to very quickly ask these questions. But we've received quite a number of emails. A large number of people have come out and spoke tonight. I don't think I've received a single email or heard a person speak against it. So it's clear that it has very large support in the community. I appreciate the changes that Attorney McCourt made to kind of better protect the city. I think it's worth noting that the city is putting in the most money, but we are in many cases in third position. There are some questions that have come up, because we've had the shortened timeline, that I haven't been able to ask or get answers to, such as during the walk, there was a lot of talk about how there's a forestry use is permitted on the land, and it's up to the landowner, and SELT can be advised about it, but they can't really veto it. I mean, to me, that seems reasonable, but does that also mean like something like a Christmas tree farm could go in? I don't know the answer to that. I hope not. I hope it's more beneficial forestry. But I think I certainly will be supporting this. I wouldn't be opposed to a delay, but I don't think we'll have support for that either. And I just want to applaud all the people that came out and spoke. It's very refreshing when we hear from people that we've never heard from before, when they're passionate about something like this. So just a big thanks to everybody that came and spoke and who wrote into the council.
The Assistant Mayor, then Councilor Cook, and then Councilor Bowick.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will be supporting this. I think I'll keep it brief, as many of you did, so thank you for that. I think it's very important to think about moments like this as a councilor, where you have the ability to really make a long-term impact. We all sit up here thinking about how we can better our community, and those who came before us and those who will come after us feel that way. I think there's very few moments where you can trace back in history, and I hope that this, in the conservation of this 100-acre woods, will be one of those that in 50 years my children and grandchildren will look back at and be proud that we as a community came together to make sure that this was still here.
Counselor Cook, and then Counselor Blaylock, then Counselor Tabor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with the Assistant Mayor. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to preserve this amount of land in the city of Portsmouth. The Southeast Land Trust does an outstanding job at preservation and stewardship of properties throughout. The ones I've seen in Rockingham County, I haven't been to Stratford, but I've been to several of the properties throughout Rockingham County. I'm impressed with the work they do. I think that we're very fortunate to have this partner. I have to thank Mr. Cavaretta for considering this in the first place. There are not very many people that come forward and sacrifice development rights for their property, which is a lot of money that he's giving up because he cares so much about conservation. I also have to thank the Conservation Commission for bringing this forward to the council and the Sustainability Committee for voicing their concern and support for this, because it truly is important when we talk about environmental preservation to preserve carbon sinks and wooded areas within the city. And that helps us not only with water resources, but also clean air and space for residents to explore in nature when we see so much development. So thank you to all of those individuals. I do have one question for the legal counsel. This draft memo outlines some conditions. Have these been reviewed with the Southeast Land Trust and the property owner?
Yes, they have. Not with the property owner, but with the Southeast Land Trust. And Southeast Land Trust has made it clear that we cannot interfere with the agreement that they have with the property owner.
So then a quick follow-up. So these, the conditions in our memo would be amenable to the Southeast Land Trust? I just want to make sure before we vote to approve funding under these conditions.
Yes, I've been in contact with them throughout this whole process, yes.
All right, thank you.
Counselor Blaylock, and Counselor Tabor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think this is, it's been said, a very unique opportunity, given that it's using funds that are strictly can only be used for this, so there is no opportunity cost loss. It is no cost to the taxpayer. But to be able to preserve 100 acres in Portsmouth is very rare. And property that abuts the Urban Forestry Center, property that abuts Dondero School, even abuts Rye Elementary School, I think is very important. After the walkthrough, and thank you for Mr. Cavaretta and CELT for giving us the site tour. But you can see the history, that you can see it's, I mean, I grew up playing back there as a child, as a student at Dondero. You know, my friends lived on Harding and in the Woodlands. We would go, you know, run around and play back there. And to leave it, to know that it's going to be preserved like that is priceless. But today I coach kids on Harding Road. They're going to have that. To just have this area preserved, I think is the right choice.
Counselor Blaylock, Counselor Tabor, and Counselor Barty.
Thanks, Your Honor. I think it's seldom that we get to do something of such lasting value with so little work on our part, because so many other people have done so much work over the years. We're the last step in a 12-year process. The Seacoast Land Trust, the progenitor of CELT, was formed way back when luxury condos were proposed for Belle Isle, and residents wanted to preserve the beauty of green space in that area. And then Seacoast Land Trust merged with Rockingham County Land Trust to form CELT, and the vision was to have an organization that would have the financial strength and the stature to have trained professionals in land conservation, and they've achieved that. It's something they wanted to be like the Forest Society or other great conservation organizations in the state. So at the same time all that was happening, they were having conversations with Mr. Cavaretta, and they built a friendship based on a simple fact that despite all the visits from the developers, and there were many, Mr. Cavaretta in his heart wanted to protect this land. And what we're doing tonight does that. It's consistent with our master plan. It's recommended by our Conservation Commission. It's recommended by our Sustainability Committee. It's valued as the most valuable conservation parcel in the city by our own planning department. And we have all the work of SELT, and they'll write the easement, and not only that, they'll monitor every year so that there are no encroachments on this conservation land, which can happen when you border neighborhoods. So I think it's a wonderful capstone that we're going to do for all the work that all the volunteers and organizers of SELT have put together. And as I say, we get to just do the final capstone, but all the work and the credit goes to the people of Southeast Land Trust and that organization. And they'll be good stewards.
Councilor Tabor, Councilor Lombardi.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, everything I wanted to say has been said. I'll keep it brief. One point I'd like to make is that if anyone is worried about spending $1 million on this, I think, that's what you would pay for a house on a, quarter-acre plot, a new house. So, to get 100 acres of conservation that's for the future of Portsmouth is just incredibly valuable. And I really appreciate, I went through the document that Deputy City Attorney created, and it looks to me, that as a non-lawyer, that it protects the city very well. So thank you, Trevor, for that.
I'll just add, thank you, Attorney McCourt, for allowing some of the grant agreement issues to go in, to allow especially Concom to have any further say. If there is development on there, they were wise enough to recommend this property for us. I think it would be great if they are included as a part of that discussion. I will be enthusiastically in support of this, and I just wanted to make, I guess, 3 points. First, I agree with all that is said about being able to do something for the future. Forgot before Peter Laughlin said, like Het Farm went through the same thing. My sister learned to ride horses. I learned to, do whatever I did while my mom and sister were riding horses. But it was always a amazing thing just to see that preserved. It's the work that went into that, work that went into the Great Bog. And I am proud parent of a forest kid, and what that is, Sarah Brown created an organization of outdoor classrooms. My daughter loved it. My younger daughter will certainly take part in it. But they just walk around in the Great Bog. They walk around in the woods and they find stuff and they explore. And I think from a childhood standpoint, getting that wonder, it's tough to put a price tag on that, but I was certainly happy that that was protected so that they were able to enjoy that. And finally, I guess the biggest point that I'd like to make, I hear so much, and you hear this as mayor all the time and council all the time, why do we let this condo happen or this hotel happen? Well, it turns out people have property rights, and they can do with their property, as long as it conforms to zoning, what they want to do with their property. And, when we look around at why is a rent, this much, a lot of times that's because what it can get. And everybody that sells their house usually doesn't take a discount. I've run into a couple of people that have. They've been swayed by a story of somebody that wants to stay in the neighborhood, but most people make economic decisions that benefit them and their family, and there's nothing against that. But we're at a position where we're watching Mr. Cavaretta make a different choice for Portsmouth. And so it's fantastic that he's doing it. It's fantastic that SELT has built up the trust with Mr. Cavaretta, and they certainly have the experience to be able to manage this and to not have to deal with this from a management standpoint. I'm sure that there's a lot of people in Public Works that are super excited about that as well. But it's a choice that he's made for the future of Portsmouth, and one that I applaud and appreciate as somebody that spends a lot of time thinking how we can make this city better. It's probably going to pale in the comparison to what Mr. Cavaretta has already decided to do. So I fully support this. We're going to have a roll call vote because it's the expenditure of funds, and so I'll ask Kelly to do that now.
Assistant Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Tabor?
Yes.
Counselor Cook?
Yes.
Counselor Denton?
Yes.
Counselor Blaylock?
Yes.
Counselor Bagley?
Yes.
Counselor Moreau?
Yes.
Counselor Lombardi?
Yes.
Mayor McEachran?
Yes.
Unanimous.
And if you're here just for that, you can go home, guys. So next up, we have the consent agenda.
Okay. Yes, move to accept the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next up, presentations, written communications. We have email correspondence.
Move to accept and place on file.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Finally, or not finally, but we now have the presentation from Portsmouth Public Media requesting to reevaluate the cable franchise fee policy. Please, the floor is yours. We'd ask you to keep it to 10 minutes, but understand that you have a presentation and we're all yours. So is it loaded up or?
Kevin Russell, our producer, is going to run it from the booth.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, supporters. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. We very much appreciate, we're sincerely appreciative that you're here. We have 3 people speaking tonight. I will be as brief as I can. I have been a member and producer for 13 years with Portsmouth Public Media TV. I have been the president of the board for 1 year. In the past year alone, we have generated approximately $18,000 in revenue, which is close to unique among cable access stations. Most cable access stations receive a great deal of funding from the cable franchise fee. We are in a unique and very different position here. A few things that have happened. We have managed to recruit 3 notable sponsoring organizations, all organizations which you would know and be proud to have supporting our television station in the last year. We have cut our real estate rental expense by 70% by moving to a new location, and I'm sure all of you who promote a nonprofit can understand what that means to a nonprofit's budget, particularly a nonprofit with 1 full-time employee and 2 part-time employees. We have welcomed multiple new and impassioned board members with great ideas, people who have a vested interest in this station, not just for familial reasons and of course, investment reasons, but people who have been part of this since the beginning. We also have an application process, we're in application process with 7 different find your words, Alexis, you only, speak to everyone through a television on a regular basis. Application process with 7 different grant funding organizations, well, thanks to one of our recently new board members, which I know is a big concern for one council member in particular. And just to kind of put a final point on all of the things I could stand here and say all night long, we educate future filmmakers. I think you've understood that tonight by just a few of the voices, never mind those who are hidden in the background and those who are off in school now. We make arts, culture, and Portsmouth events and initiatives accessible to all by bringing them through public television to people who may not be able to afford the rising cost of cable. And we've introduced Portsmouth to a global audience. One of our shows in particular has made it around the world with just 1 episode alone, garnering over 1.5 million views. And we are here to, as you know, ask the city to reevaluate the 2009 policy regarding the funding of community television. PPM TV brings, as I back up and can't read my own writing, my one wonderful finishing sentence is to say that PPM TV brings this world-class city to a worldwide audience. We are, as Eddie said, Portsmouth's time capsule. And as another board member said recently, we are a world-class city. And we'd like to be seen as one and continue bringing that to the world. So on that pitchy note, I'm going to hand it over to our Executive Director, Chad Cordner. After Chad, we have a presentation, 1 more person to speak. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.
Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you.
Hello, councilors. I think we can skip through some of these and get close to the video because that's the thing, what I'm going to introduce here. I just wanted to say a couple things about where I come from is when I was younger, I didn't have a resource like PPM TV. I was lucky enough to have a friend that I met in the neighborhood who was in a wheelchair, and he was filming us skateboarding. And I asked him what he was going to do with that. And he said, I'm going to put some this together and edit it. And I said, well, can you teach me? So I spent hours with him learning how to film and edit some things. Eventually we went to college together where we were able to really, create more production value content together. One day we were talking about a few things about a video to create, and Alex, my friend, said he had to go into surgery, and it ended up not going well for him, and he passed away at 19 years old. This city is lucky to have something like PPM TV. I didn't have that. I had a great friend. I was lucky. With PPM TV, the resource that we do offer to the young people in this community is something that I would have died to have. I'm very lucky that I had a friend like that. And yeah, I mean, I could go on about him and I'll get length on that, but I just want to say that, the community is, with young filmmakers, it's very important to be able to have people to do it with. And we don't only educate, we also offer space for other organizations, Stranger Than Fiction here, other businesses that use our space, and that's a valuable thing for the community. If you want to scoot over here to the video, I'd like to just play this for you guys so you can kind of get an idea of everything that we do.
We couldn't have done that anywhere else, and we looked. We looked at the high school. We looked everywhere to find somebody that could help us to both film and edit, and PPM TV was the place to come to.
I'm filming this because I just landed a really sick directing job at my school, and that's purely because of my experience and what I learned while I was interning at PPM TV. Without my time at PPM TV and without Jake and Chad, I would not have nearly as much experience and knowledge about working cameras or running a broadcast system or editing or any of that. But because of them, I have the tools that I need to make it in the industry that I want to make it in.
Everyone who works there has always welcomed me and made me feel like I could be in the industry, like I belonged there.
The resources that are available here, space, time, technological expertise, the ability to be taught, the ability to express yourself on video or through audio production, that's what PPM TV has to offer the community. And the people that work here are the key to making that possible.
Our mission is to give the community a space to freely create, learn together, and make their voices heard. We teach and equip citizens to produce all kinds of media, whether it's informational, experimental, or just telling your story. We've been in film festivals all over the globe and have created 4 Emmy-winning productions, all with the help of volunteers and members here at PPM TV. PPM TV captures the past, present, and future voices of this community. PPM TV is a piece of Portsmouth's artistic soul. If this policy is not changed, the Seacoast will lose one of its most accessible platforms for making those voices heard.
Public television gives volume to the quiet voices of our community, from underrepresented citizens to nonprofits offering vital services.
Living and learning with disabilities, Black Heritage Trail, So Much for Seniors, and Diversity Dignified highlight the disabled, senior citizens, LGBTQ+ members, and minority groups of the community. Our PHS internship program provides a unique hands-on opportunity that prepares students for higher education and a career in the film and television industry.
Saving this station will enable us to continue bringing Portsmouth events and initiatives to people in their homes, at-home education to lifelong learners, and hands-on experience to the filmmakers of tomorrow. The current policy, where City Hall benefits from the majority of the cable franchise fee and PPM TV receives the fluctuating remainder, is not providing adequate support for our community's public media. The good news is that this policy can be reassessed at any time.
With proper funding from the cable franchise fee, we will be able to continue to offer this resource to other nonprofits, businesses, and citizens of the Seacoast.
Traditionally, public access stations are funded primarily through that franchise fee.
We will be able to guide a new group of PHS students into the future of this industry. We will have the man-hours to support growth. We will continue to offer a soapbox for our underserved voices and offer a safe space for creativity for our community.
See the blow that fell.
In my life, not exactly this one, but the style.
To provide food, and we're really focused on.
And if we fail as a community to adequately fund public media, then I fear this will be the last video produced by PPM TV. The City Council has an opportunity to make history tonight by supporting this policy change and continuing to make public media available for this community.
Thank you to the City Council and to everyone who has come out tonight in support of PPM TV. My name is Peter Billigus. I am a Portsmouth resident and I am the treasurer of Portsmouth Public Media. You know, it's been said that when it comes to fundraising, you should start with your biggest donor. Well, here we are. We are here to ask the City Council to allow Portsmouth Public Media to renegotiate the more than decade-old cable franchise agreement, an agreement that has never been adjusted for inflation or for any other reason. And we hope that this renegotiation will allow us to pay our staff a fair wage, upgrade our equipment, and continue to serve the people of this community. You can think of PPM TV as the time capsule of Portsmouth. We are here to help people tell their stories, and yes, it's true, with social media and with smartphones, people have the power to tell their stories. But they may not have the resources to tell their stories powerfully. They may not realize they have a story at all. And even when their story is told, often it just gets lost in the ether. We don't want to be here 20 or 30 or 50 years from now as a city saying, you know, I wish we had some video footage of this event or this story. Sometimes the influence or significance of a particular story can change with the passage of time, but only if that story was captured in the first place. What PPM TV does is it addresses all of these challenges and more by providing the resources, the space, and the storage for the stories of Portsmouth. So while we as an organization will continue to fundraise, while we will continue to trim expenses where we can, this organization costs what it costs, as other cities similar in size to ours have shown. PPM TV has achieved amazing results on the small budget it has. Not one, not two, but 4 Emmys. Videos with over 4 million views. Viewers watching us from all over the world. All that done on a very limited budget. Imagine what we could do with proper funding. We ask that you consider allowing us to renegotiate the more than decade-old agreement with the city so that we can continue being the time capsule of Portsmouth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So I had a presentation. Is there a motion of the council?
Any discussion?
Yeah, we'd have to have a motion to discuss. Is there a motion on the floor?
Your Honor, I would make a motion to discuss the presentation.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye. Okay, I'll start. Okay, thanks so much. I want to say thank you all so much for coming out. I know how, for some of you, this was your first time in this chamber, and it can be very jarring, especially speaking to people up here for some reason. But while I wholly support PPMTV, my struggle with this is the long-term viability of the reliance on the cable franchise fee. We've seen dramatic cuts from that over the last 10 years, and I think that my mindset is a little bit of, are we going to see more dramatic cuts? We're seeing more people turn away from cable TV and into streaming services. And until the legislation somehow catches up with how people are watching and consuming, that is my concern, is that what happens? What is PPMTV's plan when this well runs dry? Because I could see it running dry in the next 15 to 20 years. That doesn't take away the importance of the program. I would be open to having more in-depth conversations, looking at treasury reports, looking at plan out budgets, things like that. My other concern, and I'm actually really glad that WSCA came this evening, because it opens the broader conversation, which is what is the city's role in its support of nonprofits. Where do we draw the fiscal line of who gets money and who doesn't get money? Where do we draw the line of what is important, what is a community benefit, what is a community access? I would value that WSCA and PPMTV are both insurmountable in the amount of impact they have on the community. So I think that we have to make sure that we're having open discussions, and I understand that some people don't agree with me, and that's okay. That's what this process is about. It's about having the conversations that are difficult right now, because I can understand, as someone who's the president of a nonprofit, it's a scary moment to start looking at your treasurer's reports and looking at your long-term strategic planning and funding and saying, how do we make sure we keep this alive? And so I'm open to have more conversations about this, but I think for me as a counselor and as somebody who we have to look at the benefit of all and figure out a fairness of all. I think the city's done a really great job at trying to balance nonprofits without giving more financial dollars, as in decreased rents and things like that. So, I'm sorry?
Not.
Open up with a conversation about how that's the franchise.
So we're not having, it's not a back and forth. Appreciate it, but it's not a back and forth.
Sorry, I got confused. My bad.
Any other conversation or questions? Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I had a nice conversation today with leadership at PPMTV, and I shared concerns as well about the franchise fee. So the challenge we have around the franchise fee, and I think the assistant mayor explained this pretty well, is that it's declining as people cut their cable and go to streaming services. So even if we gave PPMTV 100% of the cable franchise fee, that is not sustainable in the long term, because ultimately that will go down significantly. So, and that cable franchise fee, it is my understanding, also supports Channel 22, which is at the tune of over $200,000 a year to operate Channel 22. And the city's only taking $360,000 from that. But also supports additional services we provide, which I think are above and beyond what we do for Channel 22, because we broadcast all of the city's meetings on YouTube on our city website, and that led to an increase in our IT services that we offer and more staffing just in the last few years. So I understand there are significant constraints on those funds, and ultimately the city is going to have to pay out more dollars that we're not even receiving from the cable franchise fee. So my concern is that we need to find a sustainable model to support PPMTV. And we also need a sustainable model to support WSCA, because I believe that these media resources are very valuable in the community. But that may look like a different partnership with the city, and I think the city should consider discussions with PPMTV about how we can support PPMTV in other ways. And that may not be at the council level, it may be at the school board level, maybe discussions around what does it look like to have a media broadcast department within our career technical education program at the high school. What does that look like? Is it possible to offer that type of resource at our high school? And therefore provide more broadcast opportunities also for youth in the community. But I think this has to be a much broader conversation, because even if we change the formula, it's not going to support PPM-TV in the long run. And that's the major concern I have right now.
Councilor Bagley?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is something that I struggled with during COVID. We had several task force. I was helped create one. I believe Councilor Cook sat on one or helped create another one, and they both had to do with nonprofits. We are blessed in Portsmouth to have a huge number of nonprofits. By and large, the city does not support nonprofits monetarily, or if it does support them monetarily, it's with very relative to the amount of money that PPM-TV is getting, very small amounts. So for me, it's less about the cable franchise fee, which I do think will continue to diminish over time as people cut the cord, and more about a question of fairness. We have too many outstanding nonprofits to list, and for one nonprofit to get such a substantial amount of direct funding from the city, when many others, like for instance WSCA, get none, or many of our health and human service nonprofits that do so much in the community get very small amounts relative to this. I have trouble supporting funding for this, and to be perfectly frank, I have brought this up with the city manager in the past, because my concern is when I look at the budget for the city, it doesn't matter where the money comes from. Once, 76% or something about there comes from property taxes, but we get a lot of money for the budget from many other areas. And our duty as counselors is to get the most value for the most residents out of every dollar that comes in. So to me, it's not important if it comes from a franchise fee or if it comes from a grant. Like, we're going to accept some large grants for the fire department today. What's important to me is that we're getting the most impact and value about every tax dollar that we spend.
So I would just, I guess I would interject and say, from a franchise fee standpoint, like, there's a little history when it comes to franchise fees, in so much that, they were a negotiation between the federal government that wanted to put, used property through municipalities to say, hey, if we're going to actually, put cable and use poles, which is our property. People remember that when, we now have better, stronger legislation, so the utility companies have to take down their old poles faster. My dad was really excited when that happened. He'd point out he knew where every old pole was, but that's the property that we're talking about. And so there is a compromise with municipalities and the cable providers to say, of this that you're going to do, generate up to 5%. And we're lucky that we're at the maximum of 5%. Great job, Broadband Commission, for negotiating that, again, to the limit that is set by law. But it is unique so much as this is separate from a tax, so much as it is a agreement that we have with the cable companies that allow this, and the purpose of this has typically been on education and making sure that public broadcasting remains public. Now, I have cut the cord myself, and so I don't pay into that because I'm just on the internet. But when we don't pay into that, there is a effect of a lack of awareness and education, which is the bedrock of any civil society, that we have educated voters that make decisions. And so I'm certainly swayed by WSCA having a similar position. There's not a chunk of money that goes to WSCA, but I would love to figure out, with the chunk of money that we have, a path forward that allows us to look at this. And guys, I think the cable franchise fee, Senator Shaheen has done a lot on this to try to maintain it and to expand it, and I hope that one day we will have it affect the broader streaming network, because the educational requirements of that, even though it's fiber optics, and we found all of them when we tried to do the Maplewood Bridge, or we're doing the Maplewood Bridge, it's happening, but we found all of downtown's fiber optics nestled in there. It's still part of the property that it should be. Cable optic lines or fiber optic lines no different than cable. There should be some sort of consideration for that. And my concern, if we don't have that, then educated folks that need education outside of maybe the typical channel. So what I'd hope that we could see would be a conversation, knowing that there's a certain amount, knowing that the amount that we have dedicated to Channel 22 is less, and see, a path forward that, and I should have passed the gavel, I'll just pass it now, sorry, Assistant Mayor, that sees a path forward that understands that in the event of this not going away, like this going away completely, the decision for the city of Portsmouth to fund every nonprofit outside of the cable franchise fee, if we imagine that goes down to zero, is not going to be a position that the city of Portsmouth can be in. And so if there could be something that we took back and looked at whether or not it was matching, whether or not that build-up matching over a number of years, a different policy that looked at the costs that we incur to run Channel 22 and costs that are not incurred from this, and create a ramp to full fiscal independence from the franchise fee, knowing that the franchise fee can go away for all of us. And then we're going to be in a different position, and that position is not going to be different than any other nonprofit, no matter how much we appreciate your services. There are many nonprofits that exist in the state, so if there was, or in the city. So if there was a motion to consider an update to the council policy that took into account the dwindling franchise fee over a number of years and made accommodations for that, given the year-over-year decline in that fee, with a path to financial solvency in the event of it going away. That's something that I think we should have, that comes back to the council, that we then have a discussion on in light of this presentation, to have a further discussion based on what that might look like.
Is there a second?
Did I make that motion? That was a terrible motion.
You made the motion.
Your Honor, I believe, and if I'm not misunderstanding, you were proposing that a councilor would make this motion for a future meeting, or are we making the motion live on the floor now?
Or is this for staff to come back with a
I
recommendation?
think you would staff to come back. Yeah. Well, the assistant mayor is in charge now, so.
I would say that we are looking for a recommendation from staff.
Second.
Okay.
Okay. We don't need a roll call, right? Okay. Oh, Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. When it comes to a recommendation from staff, can we also explore alternative options for supporting PPM TV outside of just reallocating the cable franchise fee within the city government? If there are other opportunities for partnership in other places, at least start exploring that.
Councilor Moore.
I'd also like to add that it'd be nice to know what other communities do. It was said tonight that other communities do it differently than us, and I guess those communities, if they're similar to us and also have the Channel 22, it'd just be nice to know what the similarities are, if we could find that out as well.
Okay. Councilor Tabor.
I think it's important that we understand that this is something we do for the interim, because the rate that the cable franchise fee is shrinking, it's gone from 455 to 400,000 in 1 year. That's an 8.5% drop. Over 5 years, that's a 40% drop. So we can slice the pie differently, but the pie is shrinking very fast. So, what could we do for a year or two? But ultimately, PPM TV is going to have to figure out how they are going to fund themselves as the franchise fee shrinks. This is a mature industry that's shrinking, that gives us, it's a goose that lays golden eggs, but it's smaller and smaller eggs every year. So we could look at options for the short term, but within a couple of years, you need to figure out how to be financially independent. And that's a huge challenge. I was in a mature and shrinking industry, and after 7 years, we had the same revenue, but it was more than half of it was from things we didn't do 7 years before. So that's the challenge that you have.
Any more comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll pass this back now.
Go back. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute recess.
Yeah.
Paul, I think it's
Twice
a
a
new,
month.
It's a new podcast.
All right, so I don't normally gavel us back, but we're here. Thank you. We've gone through, let's see, we are now still in presentations, written communication. Letter from Jim Pappas requesting the city relinquish Paper Street known as Walnut Street to him as the abutter to the property.
Your Honor, I move to refer to the planning board for a report back.
Second.
Any discussion?
If I can amend the motion, it's to refer to the planning department for a report back.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. I just always see planning and put board next to
And
it.
it should
out of my
actually say
head.
planning and sustainability department.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Come back with a report.
Then
back.
I would have probably not missed it.
There we go. Thank you.
So amended, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, a letter from Todd Seelig, Durham Town Administrator, commending the Portsmouth Public Works team for their cooperation and coordination for the restoration work at Wagon Hill Farm.
Move to accept and place on file?
Second.
Glad that that project is over and appreciate the town of Durham, the collaboration there. Thank you, Todd. All in favor? Aye. Next up, letter from Jerry Ann Bogus, Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire, requesting permission to install a special plaque that honors Valerie Cunningham on a post on the grounds of the Portsmouth Historical Society.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to execute a license agreement with the Black Heritage Trail of New Hampshire for the installation of a plaque at the Portsmouth Historical Society.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Letter from Bert Cohen, Chair and the members of the Sustainability Committee, recommending and encouraging the City Council to vote in favor of the partnering with CELT to purchase the conservation easement of the Cavaretta property.
Your Honor, I move to accept and place on file. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Could have brought that one up, I guess. Letter from 179 Union Property Services, request for fee waiver for replacement of brick sidewalk.
Your Honor, the matter's been resolved. The legal department and myself, we had a conversation with the Public Works, and I've since relayed the resolution of the matter to the property owner, so.
Wonderful.
No action needed. All right.
Action needed.
All right, on to our council agenda items. There is one, and it's the resignation of Steve Pesci from the Parking and Traffic Safety Committee.
Your Honor, I move to accept the resignation with regret on September 6th and send a letter of thanks for his service to the city.
Second.
Well, his term doesn't officially end until September 17th.
Okay, that was the confusion we had, because we have a meeting tomorrow that he's going to attend.
Definitely has to attend. He is my neighbor. I will tell him that he has to attend.
So we'll amend that to 17th.
17th.
Yes.
Steve's a fantastic member of PTS and will be impossible to replace. He still serves as ward moderator for another year in Portsmouth, and deservedly. You know, it's not a lifetime commitment when you do serve. It's appreciated. He's done so admirably and always, with honor. And it will be sad to not see his voice on PTS, because it was always a steady hand at times when sometimes the topics. I don't know if Councilor Bagley have ever run into some rocky roads there. Sometimes they're heated, and I think that Steve personally exemplifies that when you're based in the facts and you listen and you're able to change your mind, good things happen. So we'll miss you, Steve, and thanks for all of the work that you will continue to do tomorrow morning, because we won't accept this until after that, and for all the work that I know that you're going to do as ward moderator in my home ward. It's a lot of work as well. So thanks to the service of the city. All in favor?
Aye.
And next up, approvals of grants and donations. Acceptance of assistance to the firefighters grant, AFG, in the amount of $324,327.
Your Honor, I move to approve and accept the grant as presented.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to acknowledge that Fire Chief McQuillan and Fire Commissioner Gamester are here. And Bill really took initiative on behalf of the organization, which was really seeking a fiscal agent, and Bill stepped up and said, well, the city of Portsmouth could be the fiscal agent, and as such, he took a lot of initiative to do this. So thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
And though it's not, you don't get to see it unless you come to City Hall, because it's not a part of Channel 22, but whenever there's a request for the firefighters, You got the chair of the Fire Commission, Dickie Deemster, up there. You got Bill McQuillan, that are always here to support the men and women of the fire department, and just want to call out, all the effort you do on behalf of the city of Portsmouth. It's not always getting us money, but we certainly appreciate it when it is. So thank you for that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And next up, the acceptance of household hazardous waste collection grant in the amount of $4,951.
Your Honor, I move to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement with New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services to accept $4,951 from the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Grant Program and execute any contracts or documents which may be necessary for this grant agreement.
Second.
Any discussion? This is my favorite holiday in Portsmouth. But
Twice a year.
that makes it even better. Councilor Lombardi.
Just a reminder that this is open to our neighboring communities, too.
That is true. That is true.
I'm sure they're watching.
The city of the open door knows no boaters. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. City manager's informational items.
They will be brief, Your Honor. First, with regard to an update on the community policing facility, the staff would want you to know we are planning to present updated concepts based on the feedback received to date at the next council meeting, which will be on September 23rd, under presentations and written communication. The update on the Sherburne property RFP process is that, in fact, the RFP went out to the 4 submitters that were ranked the highest from the RFQ process. That went out. And as such, there'll be a site walk for everyone who's interested on Thursday, September 12th at 1 p.m. If for some reason we cannot hold it, then it will be on Monday, September 16th at 1 p.m. Questions from the 4 respondents will be due by September 20th. Addendum to which provides answers to those questions will be produced by us by September 23rd. And the deadline for submittal will be the close of business Wednesday, October 9th. So look for an update from us at the 2nd October meeting on that. And lastly, the mayor's favorite biennial holiday is Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day. It's coming up a week from Saturday on September 14th. That's it.
All right. Oh, so it happens to be a day before my daughter's birthday, I'll have to prioritize. Anything else under miscellaneous? I'd wait a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Portsmouth.